Chapter 1941 Group Resurrection. It was the pride of the Clear Sky clan with their ancestor being the Lord of the Plain. In the sky, Tang Hao suddenly pointed in the direction of the sea with his right hand. He raised the Clear Sky hammer soon after to unleash a layer of 7-colored radiance which floated to the sea. All at once, the surface of the sea boiled over. At present, the fleets belonging to the Douluo Empire and the Dou Spirit Empire on the sea witnessed the scene in the sky similarly. Actually, they had yet to fully comprehend what just happened. However, they had received the video signal from the Douluo continent earlier. At present, they could see the situation on the main battlefield in Douluo as well. Tang Hao's Clear Sky hammer was pointed in their direction. At the same time, the people from the two great fleets were quite confused. What was Tang Hao trying to do? In the next moment, they were astonished to find the sea before them suddenly turn 7-colored. In the 7-colored radiance, 7-colored air bubbles slowly rose into the sky from the sea. Each air bubble contained a person inside, much to everyone's surprise. The first two air bubbles which rose into the sky contained the boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji and the light dark Douluo Longyeyu. The two great limit Douluo's eyes were tightly closed. The people around them were soldiers dressed in the Douluo Federation's naval uniforms. The densely arranged 7-colored air bubbles carried their bodies to the shore slowly. The strange scene had everyone from the Douluo Empire and the Dou Spirit Empire in shock. A miracle. It was truly a miracle. These people were taken to the shore gradually, carried by those air bubbles. The first person who awoke during the flight was the light dark Douluo Longyeyu. Longyeyu still maintained her young appearance when she died. Her long lashes battered once. When she opened her eyes, she was seemingly in a confused state. The first thing she saw was the 7 colors before her eyes. Her body trembled uncontrollably for a short while. She thought to herself, could it be that this is the world that one goes to upon death? In the next moment, her gaze was frozen. She saw a 7-colored air bubble not far from her carrying the boundless sea Douluo Chenzinji. She just realized she was in an air bubble as well. All at once, she became even more confused. Could it be that this is how it feels to be dead? Meanwhile, Chenzinji regained his consciousness as well. He looked about in confusion similarly. In the next moment, he noticed Longyeyu's presence. Both of them shifted their bodies to press tightly against the air bubbles and gazed fixedly at each other. Zinji. Longyeyu called aloud. However, her voice could not penetrate the air bubble. Chenzinji called out to her as well, but no sound was heard similarly. Longyeyu felt rather anxious. She hoped to be with him always, even in death. Yet, the air bubbles isolated them from each other. Meanwhile, they discovered that the surrounding scenery seemed different. They looked toward the surroundings only to find many other soldiers in air bubbles just like them. A number of the air bubbles had already reached land at the moment. Why does the world after death look so familiar? The thought came to Chenzinji and Longyeyu's mind simultaneously. A moment later, their air bubbles descended to the ground. The air bubbles popped silently upon landing and transformed into 7-colored halos which fused into their bodies. Chenzinji moved his body about and found everything about him felt normal. In fact, he had completely recovered from the exhaustion of the battle earlier. However, he was hardly bothered by it all. He made his way over to Longyeyu in a flash and wrapped his arms tightly around her. Longyeyu returned the hug. They clearly felt the warmth and aura of each other at this very moment. They were in a warm embrace, oblivious to their surroundings. If they could be together regardless of where they were, in life or in death, what more could they ask for? The surrounding area gradually grew clamorous. A few shocked voices were heard amidst the racket. After a long while, Chenzinji and Longyeyu finally released themselves from the embrace and looked toward the surroundings slightly confused. The soldiers were dressed in both army and navy uniforms, and they appeared so realistic. In the sky, Tang Hao retracted the Clear Sky hammer and pointed it at the ground before him. The 7-colored radiance surged. It poured out from the ground and transformed into air bubbles. Then, the air bubbles gradually grew in size. The silhouettes inside the air bubbles went from blurry to vivid, from illusory to real. Who was that? It was the Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue. Who was that? It was the ferocious wolf Douluo Dong Xian. Who was that? It was the heavenly phoenix Douluo Leng Yaoshu. Also, the silhouettes were resurrected one after another. The silhouettes appeared one at a time before the eyes of everyone. Not only the powerhouses, but all the soldiers who died in battle earlier were all resurrected. Yes, this was the power of a god. Following the resurrection of those silhouettes, Tang Hao's tall and muscular body began to turn illusory. Meanwhile, a yin swayed her body once and she was already at the explosion point of the abyss. Blades of gigantic blue-silver emperor vines spread out into the surroundings with her body as its center. The vines devoured the incomparably rich abyssal energy in the air. The moment Lan Muzi appeared, Tang Yimeng, who had regained consciousness earlier, shrieked aloud. She threw herself at him without a care in the world. Yes, they had all come back to life. The heroes who had fought for the continent were all brought back to life. No one knew where the cheering began on the Douluo continent, but following the appearance of the 7-colored air bubbles, all the sorrow turned into joy at this very moment. The deafening cheers echoed throughout the entire Douluo land. Tears streamed down Tang Wulin's face. They're alive. They're all alive. Nothing would make him happier. He watched as his seniors and companions came to life within the 7-colored radiance one after another. At the moment, there was only pride in his heart. It was the result of the joint effort between his grandfather and his father. The abyssal plane had not only failed in devouring the Douluo continent. On the contrary, it was devoured by the Douluo continent in turn and became a part of the Douluo continent. Consequently, the Douluo continent's life force would certainly be rejuvenated. Things on the Douluo continent would surely get better from now on. The people who had sacrificed their lives were given back their lives. What else could compare such a perfect ending? Yet, all of a sudden, Tang Wulin's body shook once. He raised his head and looked toward his grandfather in the sky. Grandfather, my godmother. Tang Hao said, the person who chooses death won't be resurrected. Also, it is meaningless to resurrect someone who wants to die. It's their choice. It's the same for your godmother. So's Wu Zhangkong. I can't resurrect the lovers, Yali and Wu Zhangkong, since they chose to leave this world to be with their loved ones. The best that I can do is to keep their souls together and ensure they're still connected in their next lives. The Holy Spirit Douluo Yali was not resurrected since it was far better for her to join Yanming in death than to live alone in this world. Had it not been for Shrek Academy, she would have followed Yanming already. Her choice was to leave with Yanming all along. It was the same for Wu Zhangkong. Had it not been the responsibility he carried and his persistence in seeking revenge, he was supposed to have died earlier as well. By turning into an ice statue, he hoped his yearning desire and sentiments of longing would be frozen eternally. He refused to be resurrected. For them, being alive was more agonizing than being dead. It was their personal choice. On the other hand, Kaiangyu Dongfang and Kaiangyu Diding were not resurrected, not because of their choice but Tang Hao's. The culprits who had caused the deaths of so many common people for their own selfish motives in the past did not deserve to be resurrected. Even though they died protecting the Federation, their merits could not wipe out their faults. Chapter 1942. What is actually going on? Slowly, the amorous Douluo Zhangxin opened his eyes. At the moment, his mind still recalled the memories. Then, he heard the deafening cheers. What was that? In the next moment, he turned his head to look to his side just in time to meet the heartless Douluo cow judge's astonished gaze. Their eyes met one another. They could not help blinking uncontrollably. They lowered their heads simultaneously and saw they were holding each other's hand. At once, they loosened their grip as if they were electrocuted. Furthermore, they each took 2 steps back instantly. What's going on? Why are we here? I thought we're already dead, said Zhangxin in shock. Cow Badger rubbed his eyes. He looked at his surroundings and saw the familiar silhouettes. Meanwhile, 2 silhouettes were headed straight toward them from the faraway sky. Is that Elder Long? The people flying over were the light dark Douluo Longyeyu and the boundless sea Douluo, or perhaps, one should say the sea god Douluo Chenzinji. All at once, there was only shock and astonishment in everyone's heart. Tang Hao's body was even more blurry now. Following the resurrection of almost everyone, his lofty silhouette shrunk once again as he made his way over to Tang Wulin. Grandfather, are you all right? Tang Wulin looked concerned. Tang Hao shook his head but said smilingly, I'll always be the lord of the Douluo continent's plane before your father returns. Due to the plane's issue, my power is supposed to scatter to every part of the plane, but my spontaneous consciousness won't appear so frequently. I'm only revealing myself before all of you since your father delivered a fatal blow to the Abyssal Sage King. I'll always be around so long as the Douluo star still exists. It's also why I became the lord of the plane in the past. Your father will guide me back to the divine realm when he returns. You're a good boy. You haven't disappointed us. My mission's been completed. It's time for you to enjoy the victory. However, don't be overly relaxed. You still have heavy responsibilities on your shoulders. You're already equipped with power which is close to the god rank now. However, you'll still need to become a true god in order to travel through the cosmos to look for them. First, you'll need to create the divine realm which belongs to you. Thus, you still have a long way to go. The Douluo plane will evolve after devouring the abyssal plane. At the very least, its upper limit on the suppression of the powerhouses will be increased. You'll discover that in the near future. By then, perhaps the Douluo continent will evolve into a demi-divine realm and possess a certain number of godhood tablets which will strengthen your power. Your grandmother will be channeling the abyssal energy she has absorbed into the entire plane. I'll be joining her in a deep sleep next. You'll be able to absorb a pure life force from your grandmother's body, the ancient life tree. That'll be the most suitable place for you to cultivate. Are both of you going to be in deep sleep? How will I be able to communicate with you then? Asked Tang Wuling anxiously. Tang Hao said, the abyssal energy is too massive. It's a plane that is superior to us after all. It's not an easy feat to completely devour and absorb the plane. We need a long time to complete it. By then, the rank 100 will no longer be a bottleneck and limit for the soul masters. As to how long we'll be in deep sleep, I don't know either. Nevertheless, you're nearly the most powerful powerhouse on the plane. We can sleep at ease knowing that. Your father has always kept his word. Thus, we believe they'll be back for sure. Perhaps, he'll be back in time to wake us. Be good and cultivate with great effort. If you don't have the proper coordinates, it's better not to look for him on your own. Wait for his return instead. Your father's way more powerful than you imagine. After experiencing so many events, I believe that he's become more powerful too. At this point, Tang Hao's somber face suddenly cracked into a kind smile. He raised his hand to caress Tang Wuling's head. You and your father are the same. Both of you have carried way too many responsibilities and endured endless hardships. Once you have a child and I a great grandchild in the future, do take good care of him. Our Tang sect can't have our descendants keep enduring hardship. Although suffering makes a person grow, it's time for us to think of ourselves too. Tang Wuling said, Grandfather, we'll surely meet again, right? Tang Hao burst out laughing aloud and said, Of course. The Golden Dragon King bloodline inside your body will ensure that you live as long as the Dragon Clan. Moreover, you've already achieved a god-ranked body. It's not easy to kill you. However, you must bear in mind not to open the 2 final Golden Dragon King seals. Your father has repeatedly given the warning. You should be fine to guard the seals judging by your current physical condition. When your father returns, he'll manage the Golden Dragon King's power seal inside your body naturally. Noted. Tang Wuling answered respectfully. All right, it's time for me to leave. I'm going to lend a hand to your grandmother. This is the grand gift customized by your father in 10,000 years for the Douluo continent. We can't let any go to waste. Go back to Shrek, and you'll be surprised. At this point, Tang Hao turned around and swayed his body once to transform into a ball of 7 colored radiance shooting straight at Aegeon's direction. In the next moment, the 7 colored radiance glowed brightly. The massive abyssal energy was swept into nothingness almost instantly. The 7 colored radiance suddenly exploded and turned into countless light spots shooting out in all directions. It rained. The pattering 7-colored drizzle moistened the land and nourished the Douluo continent. The sky turned 7-colored as well. A rainbow stretched across the sky and shimmered with a faint brilliance in the sky. There was a saying of a rainbow comes out after the rain. The hardship had finally ended for the Douluo continent and the entire Douluo star. A brand new Douluo continent would be welcoming them next. Tang Wuling. All of a sudden, a shriek was heard. Tang Wuling turned his head and saw Ling Zichen sitting on the ground with a confused look on her face. She was screaming at him. Obviously, she was resurrected as well. The cannon god who sacrificed and turned herself into a bomb was alive. She appeared to be no different from an ordinary person. There was no positive circulation source soul circuit unit nor the eternal heaven cannon on her body anymore. She was now an ordinary person, or as one would say a commoner. Tang Wuling held Gu Yun's hand and descended together with her from the sky and made their way over to Ling Zichen. Ling Zichen looked at him, and then she looked at Gu Yun by his side. She suddenly said in rage, Who resurrected me? Call him out. Tang Wuling frowned ever so slightly. What are you doing? Ling Zichen said in exasperation. Where's my positive circulation source soul circuit unit? Where's my eternal heaven? Make him return those to me. Why am I resurrected without my stuff? It wasn't easy for me to acquire those things. Tang Wuling was speechless. She was still thinking about her belongings despite the situation. However, he came to a sudden realization. No wonder the explosive force of the bomb was so terrifying. There was more than just the eternal heaven which had exploded at the time. There were also the positive circulation source soul circuit units on her body. It would be strange indeed if the explosive force produced from the 2 combined massive energies turned out to be weak. Those things of yours have already exploded. How can we possibly get it back? Said Tang Wuling helplessly. Ling Zichen said furiously, I don't care. You're going to compensate me for that. Meanwhile, a gentle voice was heard. Can anyone please tell me what's going on? Why am I alive? The Skycrosser Douluo Guan Yue looked slightly confused as he approached them. Not only him, the powerhouses who died in the battle earlier including Chen Xinji, Zhang Xin, Cao Daja, and the others all came forward. Chapter 1943 The Dawn of a New Era. The Heavenly Phoenix Douluo Leng Yaoshu followed behind them. She appeared to have been battered out of her senses, but she was alive. On the other hand, the Darkness Phoenix Douluo Leng Yulai did not appear. Apparently, all the people from the Holy Spirit cult could not be resurrected. Tang Wuling raised his hand and unleashed a layer of light shield to block off the deafening cheers in the surroundings. He looked at the numerous excellencies before him and gave Gu Yun's hand a tight squeeze. He said with a smile, The new era of the Douluo continent is about to arrive. A month later in Ningdu City, the results of the election will be announced soon. Mo Lan has been unanimously elected as the new speaker. Please join me to give the speaker Mo Lan a round of applause to congratulate her. Mo Lan was dressed in her formal suit today. Her suit had a dark green tone filled with life sources. The former speaker passed the scepter as a symbol of handing over his authority in the federal parliament to her. When the Douluo continent was in imminent danger, she was the one who took the stand to lead the entire continent and bring all the people together. They supported the soldiers on the front line to achieve victory at the end. She earned the affection of all people as a result. Due to the terrible tragedy, the parliament members were similarly affected. All at once, its old members were replaced with new faces. The Spirit Pagoda withdrew all its members in the parliament. So did the War God Hole. In addition, the Tang Sect, Shrek Academy and a few other great organizations announced in unison that no other organization's members would be elected as a member of the parliament. The federal parliament would conduct internal inspections and reorganize itself under the new leadership. Mo Lan's eyes looked dreary as she watched the thunderous applause coming from below the stage. The first half of her life had been close to perfection. However, the latter half was a complete change. The Holy Spirit cult had destroyed everything she possessed, including her family. She was a woman after all, despite the strong front she displayed. At the time, she vowed that she would put in all her effort to exterminate the Holy Spirit cult. It was her strong belief that kept her going all this while. Finally, she was made a leader, while the Holy Spirit cult had been completely annihilated. The grief in the depths of her heart began to emerge. She suddenly felt fatigued, yet the responsibilities she bore were heavier than before. Mo Lan raised her right hand slowly to salute the crowd below the stage. The claps and cheers faded away. Everyone quietened down to watch the celebrated female speaker on the stage with close attention. Mo Lan spoke in a deep voice. Too many events had taken place in the past few weeks. All this while, we've been living comfortably for way too long. On the other hand, this apocalyptic catastrophe is a loud alarm that has awakened us. Firstly, I would like to represent everyone on the scene here to express our gratitude to the soldiers who had fought for the Federation on the front line. Will all of you please stand? We shall salute them with 3 bows. As she spoke, she walked out from behind the rostrum. The rest of the members of the parliament stood up in succession. Under Mo Lan's leadership and with gratitude, they bowed 3 times. Please take a seat. After the 3 salutations, Mo Lan's expression relaxed slightly. Only when a real disaster struck would they be able to see whom the most worthy of their love were. There was a saying, a true friend is known at times of adversity. Such was the case. At the end, no one died in the arduous battle due to the Lord of the Plains' providence. In any case, it was not the final destination yet, and definitely not the end of the journey. In order to protect the continent during the war, blood was shed and countless lives were sacrificed by the Federation. These were the people who were most worthy of respect. Mo Lan continued to speak. This disaster has also brought many things to attention and taught us important lessons. According to Tang San, this disaster is due to his 10,000-year plan. Where does the plan come from? Why is there such a plan? The reason is simple. It's because mankind has done great damage to the entire world. At this point, her tone became serious once again. The overdevelopment of the land, the uncontrolled increase in the human population, and the pillage from other creatures are the cause of the plane's declining life force. If not because of this, why would the Almighty Sea God go through painstaking effort to replenish the Douluo star's life force? He is reminding us to improve the situation. Otherwise, Douluo will face the same situation in the future. The Sea God may be able to protect us once, but he may not necessarily protect us twice. After all, our divine realm no longer exists. Thus, as the speaker, I'd like to propose to protect the environment. So, let's join the Spirit Pagoda and put our efforts together to protect the remaining soul beasts and assist them in their survival. We should take this opportunity provided by the devourment of the abyssal energy to revitalize the Douluo continent once again. At this point in her speech, thunderous claps were heard coming from below the stage. The lesson paid with blood made everyone realize the extent of the damage on the Douluo continent. The depletion of resources hastened the decline of the Douluo continent. Such a beautiful planet was almost destroyed due to mankind's continuous pillage. Just as Molan had said, Tangsan might be able to salvage the situation once, but he might not be able to save them twice. It was because Douluo had already lost its divine realm. They could only depend on their own efforts in this case. Molan waited until the clapping had stopped before she continued speaking. The second proposal is to enhance the scientific research. We should engage in high levels of soul research development not only in weapons but also in space exploration. We should strive to acquire richer resources from the other planets, so we can elevate our scientific research and reinforce the development in soul technology. We should strive to explore the cosmos as soon as possible. The Almighty Sea God bought us time, but with the tremendous increase in the human population and the rapid development in mankind's technology, exploring the cosmos is inevitable for us. The third proposal is related to how the Douluo empires and the Dou Spirit Empire's selfless attitudes provided us with reinforcements during the catastrophe. For this, the Federation would like to express its gratitude and also voice its earnest intention to reconcile with the two empires. We'll share our resources with them and collaborate with them in soul technology research and development. We'll improve our cooperation and promote mutual exchanges with them. Mankind's three great fleets were destroyed in the battle. The soldiers were resurrected, but the three great fleets could not be recovered. The disparities between the armed forces of the three great continents were greatly reduced under such circumstances. However, there was still a huge disparity in the number of powerhouses between the Douluo Empire and the Dou Spirit Empire. Hence, the power of these empires remained in equilibrium. Anyway, the Douluo Empire and the Dou Spirit Empire had let go of their past grievances and come forward to help them this time. As a result, the Hawk faction had a ceasefire with both empires. The proposals as suggested by Molan contained drastic reforms. The proposals would be put to the vote in the coming parliamentary assemblies. It was highly probable that the proposals would be passed in view of Molan's high approval ratings now. After all, everyone knew of her relationship to Shrek and the Tang sect. Tang Wolin became a true hero and is known as Douluo's god now. He was the son of Tangsan and grandson of the Lord of the Plain. After the war ended, he held an absolutely aloof status. At the same time, Shrek Academy achieved a reputation which was unprecedented. The assembly lasted from morning till noon. Molan was exhausted by the time the meeting ended. She returned to her office completely fatigued. It was the previous speaker's office. She did not make much change but had kept the room's original decoration as a cost-saving measure. She stood before the huge French window and gazed at Mingdu's concrete jungle outside. The lines on Molan's face lightened. Meanwhile, someone knocked on her door. Come in. Her secretary came into the room and made her way over to Molan. She said respectfully, "Speaker, may I send over your lunch now?" Molan nodded and said, "Go ahead." Not much later, 2 vegetarian dishes and a bowl of rice were brought in by the secretary. Chapter 1944 Skytree. She vowed to be a vegetarian after Heaven Dou City was destroyed to seek blessings for her deceased family members. She had always lived a thrifty and simple life. The secretary set the table for her. Molan said smilingly, "You should go ahead and have your meal too." The secretary said, "Speaker, I would like to apply for a few days leave after the assembly has ended." "Oh, are you planning to travel?" asked Molan with a smile. She treated the people around her well. The secretary had a look of yearning in her eyes. "I want to travel to the new Shrek City to have a look. I heard that it's now a Holy Land. This year's enrollment day for Shrek Academy is still some time away, but many parents are already taking their children there now. Moreover, I'd like to take a look at the Skytree too." "Skytree? That's right. Let alone you. Even I'd like to go over and see it." Similarly, Molan had a look of yearning in her eyes. The secretary said, "Shrek Academy has made an official announcement to name the tree as the Eternal Tree. The Sea God's Island will be rebuilt on the crown of the tree. It is said that the Eternal Tree is over 1,000 meters in height. It is even taller than the Spirit Pagoda's headquarters and the crown is as large as the entire Sea God Lake. Naturally, a gigantic tree house is formed on top of the tree. The place is also filled with rich life sources. As soon as one steps into the ring-shaped Shrek City, one will clearly feel its rich life source such that whoever is suffering from a disease will be soothed. It's truly miraculous." Molan could not help chuckling and said, "Is it really that miraculous? However, if it's built on the tree crown, the name Sea God's Island may not be suitable anymore. After all, it's no longer an island." The secretary said, "That's true. I heard that they're going to change its name. A portion of the area will still be named the Sea God's Island while the development on the tree crown will be known as the Eternal Sky City. In the future, the inner court of Shrek City will be in the Eternal Sky City. I look forward to seeing it. Perhaps all the youths on the entire continent will now dream of becoming Shrek Academy students so as to be able to cultivate in the Eternal Sky City one day." In the early morning at Shrek City, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chen Zinji was sweeping the grounds with a huge broom in his hands. At present, his healthy face looked flushed albeit ever smiling. It seemed like he was having an especially good time sweeping. Upon closer inspection, his initial grey hair had surprisingly turned jet black. He even appeared rejuvenated. A silhouette ran out from the dormitory and began to jog around the field. The silhouette noticed Chen Zinji sweeping and began running toward him. "Elder Chen." He bowed in salutation toward Chen Zinji. Chen Zinji chuckled. "Going for a jog again? What a hard-working boy you are." Yi Zichen did not take part in the battle because he was still a student. No student was allowed to join the battle. However, he knew about the situation on the front line having watched the video recording. Hence, he learned that old Chen the Sweeper was actually one of the most powerful almighty on the Douluo continent. On the other hand, the old woman who was discourteous toward old Chen was the light dark Douluo, one of the influential excellencies and also the person who was the most senior in Shrek Academy. "It's what I'm supposed to do." Yi Zichen smiled and said, "I'll certainly put in more effort, work hard, and strive to enter the inner court within the shortest time possible." As he spoke, he raised his head and looked up to the sky. Huge branches of a tree came into view. The branches extended outward and upward from the center of the Sea God's Lake to form a gigantic, umbrella-shaped crown. When the sunlight shone from the other side, the main academic building in Shrek Academy was completely shaded by the tree's shadow. It provided a refreshing coolness on a warm day. Ever since the end of the Great War, the ancient life tree which broke the surface of the water grew to 1,000 meters in height within a month. The gigantic crown akin to a huge umbrella shaded the surface of Sea God's Lake. Dense life sources diffused to the outside continuously from the tree. The water in the Sea God's Lake turned into a translucent green soon after. The miraculous scene shocked everyone. There was no doubt that the transformation only occurred after the ancient life tree had devoured the abyssal plane. The ancient life tree was the life core of the Douluo continent. The rise of its power also signified the elevation of the Douluo continent plane's life force. The vegetation's growth rate on the entire Douluo star had now increased substantially. It was not only limited to the Douluo continent. The Douluo continent and the Dou Spirit continent also underwent similar changes. The entire planet was brimming with vitality. After devouring an entire plane, the Douluo star not only regained vitality, it also began to evolve just as Tang Hao said before he left. The evolution of a planet took many years. It might take 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. In any case, it was definitely a good situation. Undoubtedly, the Shrek Ring City was the center of it all. The construction had extended to a few areas located a few kilometers away from the Shrek Ring City by now. In fact, the Federation had decided to build 4 satellite cities around it. As a result, the price of houses in the Heaven Dou City shot up precisely because the Eternal Tree could be seen from the Heaven Dou City. "Are you slacking again?" A furious voice was heard. Ling Zichen felt his vision blurred for a moment when a person appeared next to him. It was a young maiden with a pair of kind eyes. She looked exquisite. Her hands were on her hips while her almond-shaped eyes widened. She was pouting and glaring at Chen Zinji. "I don't dare. I don't dare. I'm going to continue to do my work," replied Chen Zinji obediently. He waved his hand at Yi Zichen to dismiss him. Then, he lifted his broom to continue sweeping the area. Yi Zichen had a bewildered look on his face. The sight of the young maiden was quite familiar, yet it seemed as if he had never encountered her before. He could not help looking back as he jogged away on the field. He took 2 more glances at her. The young maiden stood by Chen Zinji's side in a manner akin to supervising him. She said in an unpleasant tone, "Why do you still keep this appearance of yours? Do you enjoy being old?" Chen Zinji chuckled aloud. "I only look like old Chen the Sweeper in this appearance." The young maiden was no other than the light dark Douluo Long Yeyu herself. The ancient life tree transformed formed by Aeon had evolved into the ancient eternal tree after devouring the abyssal plane. It would need a very long time to digest and absorb the massive amount of life force. Consequently, it entered into a deep sleep. On the other hand, everyone who took part in the war and had contributed to the war was rewarded in the form of life force. Naturally, those who were old and ailing like Chen Zhenji and Long Yeyu benefited the most from the reward. Their lifespans were extended by a few decades at the very least. Most importantly, they retained their youthful appearance. At present, the overall Douluo star, the lord of the Douluo continent and the life core were all evolving. This would result in the transformation of the entire planet. A few decades later, who could say that the soul masters would not be able to break through to rank 100 or even achieve the high ranks? The concept of godhood was collective. When the Douluo continent plane achieved an even higher rank, a soul master over rank 100 would be able to achieve the power of an ordinary godhood. By then, mankind's lifespan would be further extended. Chen Zhenji and Long Yeyu received an additional reward which was even more pleasing for them. They would remain young till the end of their lives. It was fine for Chen Zhenji, but, as a woman, nothing could be more pleasing for Long Yeyu. At present, old Chen the sweeper assumed the senile look just so he did not appear to be out of place. Long Yeyu stepped forward and stood by Chen Zhenji's side. She looked at him smilingly. I really didn't expect heaven to grant us a few more decades to be together. It's really awesome. Chen Zhenji stopped sweeping abruptly. He wrapped his arms around her. He heaved an emotional sigh and said, "That's right. I don't want to do anything else now. I just want to be with you every single day." Chapter 1945. I want my eternal heaven back. Yi Zichen had just completed one round of his joy. He stumbled and almost lost his balance after seeing the senile Chen Zhenji hugging the young and beautiful Long Yeyu. Naturally, the emotional changes in Yi Zichen did not escape the eyes of the two great limit Douluos. They gazed into one another's eyes and could not help but laugh aloud. In Tangsect. What are you doing there? Asked the puzzled amorous Douluo Zhang Xin upon seeing the heartless Douluo Cao Daja bustling in his room. Why should I tell you? Cao Daja darted him a look. Zhang Xin said in an unpleasant tone, "You're probably bored with nothing to do, right? Do you want to fight?" Cao Daja smiled. "Do you think that you're a worthy opponent of mine?" Zhang Xin replied furiously. "How am I not a worthy opponent of yours? Let's fight to prove it. We'll fight then. I'll show you how powerful I am." Cao Daja did not wish to show any impression of weakness. Half an hour later, Cao Daja walked out from the combat arena with a swollen face and a bruised nose. He looked incredulous. He said in rage, "Why? Since when did this man become so powerful?" Zhang Xin followed closely behind Cao Daja with a smile on his face. He looked very pleased with himself. "Little cow. Are you ready to give in to me?" Cao Daja said furiously. "No, I'm not in my best form today. Just you wait and see." The expression on Zhang Xin's face turned gentle in the meantime. He placed an arm over Cao Daja's shoulder and said, "Don't need to wait anymore. I won't spar with you from now on. It's because you can't possibly defeat me." Cao Daja glared at Zhang Xin. "Why? Why can't I defeat you anymore?" Zhang Xin shrugged and said, "The reason is simple. Your heartless heart has already been broken, so how can you possibly defeat me? The heartless Douluo who is no longer heartless. How can he still be a worthy opponent of mine? Life can be heartless, but you may still meet people who are full of passion. You. In Tangsect Soul Technology Research Center, BSD Road, I want my positive circulation source soul circuit units back. I want my eternal heaven back. At present, the biggest laboratory in the whole facility was in a mess. The exasperated director Ling Zichen was smashing various items to vent her anger. She was sitting on the working platform panting loudly with a furious expression on her face. She lost count of the number of times she had lost her temper in the lab. At present, she could not be a more ordinary person. The only difference was the fact that every injury and flaw she had on her body was healed by the ancient life tree. She now had a youthful and healthy body. Am I supposed to start from the beginning again? Her emotions gradually calmed down. The corner of her lips curled into a bitter smile. She clearly remembered her final decision and how she shrieked aloud when she dived into the battlefield without the slightest hesitation. She felt as if she could still hear her shriek echoing in his ears. At the same time, the only hope she had at the time was for that man to survive. Nonetheless, they were both still alive, but he was not hers. She wanted to break free from the agony of a broken heart. Yet, the pain only got worse each time she tried to break free. All of a sudden, an idea arose in her mind. She leapt down from the working platform abruptly. "I'm going to carry out a whole new research. Tang Wolin, just you wait and see. We're not done yet." At sea. The warships formed an orderly arrangement in the sea as they cruised along at high speeds. Diana gazed into the distance with teary eyes on the deck. It was finally time to leave. The Douluo Federation was grateful to the Star Luo empires and the Dou Spirit empires' altruistic acts to let bygones be bygones and to offer their reinforcements to them. Hence, a large amount of resources were given to them in return as a token of appreciation. Moreover, the Douluo Federation would continue their diplomatic relationships with these two empires. Later, they would come up with some policies to strengthen the relationship. Yet, all these were utterly meaningless for Diana. She saw him, but she only took a glance from the distance. Her heart was truly broken when she witnessed Yuna and him holding hands as they were descending together from the sky. She realized that she did not stand a chance to be with him after all. Her ultimate decision was to leave. Goodbye, Tang Wolin. Is he still having tantrums? Yuna frowned. She was dressed in a gorgeous dress and seated in the Pagoda Master's office located at the highest level of the Spirit Pagoda's headquarters. Yes, Pagoda Master. He's still throwing tantrums. After multiple consultations with a few recovery type soul masters, they concurred that it would be very difficult for his mental state to be normal again. Perhaps, he'll remain in this state for the rest of his life. Due to his title Douluo ranked cultivation base, he might cause massive destruction. We recommend putting him in confinement. Kaiangyu's Hanging had gone mad. Perhaps it was due to the passing of his grandfather and great-grandfather coupled with the sight of Yuna and Tang Wolin together. He became unstable after returning to the Spirit Pagoda. One day, all of a sudden, he went into a hysteria and caused massive destruction. It was Yuna who personally captured him. An insane title Douluo's destructive ability was absolutely shocking. Yuna's eyes had a flash of grievance. She used to loathe Kaiangyu's Hanging in the past, but she now felt pity for him. On the other hand, he had always treated her well. Confine him then. Make sure he's as comfortable as possible. Kaiangyu Diding and Kaiangyu Dongfang were not resurrected. The Kaiangyu clan had been fully stripped of their duties in the management of the Spirit Pagoda from then on. On the other hand, Yuna received unanimous support from the Spirit Pagoda's top management due to her impressive performance in the war. The Spirit Pagoda conducted their own inspection and cleaned up the organization. In particular, the Kaiangyu clan's collusion with the Holy Spirit cult was renounced. The Spirit Pagoda regained its reputation as one of the top organizations on the continent at par with Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. Once again, the only concern of the high-ranking personnel of the Spirit Pagoda was the relationship between Yuna and Tang Wolin. They had shown the special relationship between the both of them when they fought together against the Abyssal Sage King. Tang Wolin's act of holding hands with Yuna as they descended from the sky at the end displayed their close, affectionate relationship to everyone. The great forces returned to their posts upon returning from the front line. No one dared to question Yuna regarding the matter. Everyone was waiting to see how she would manage the affair in the future. Most of the Spirit Pagoda's high-ranking personnel did not wish to see any further development of the relationship between Yuna and Tang Wolin. After all, the relationship between Shrek Academy and the Spirit Pagoda was not as simple as being mere competitors. There were other underlying issues. The incident of the eternal tree breaking through the sky turned Shrek City into the center of the entire continent. The voices within the Spirit Pagoda's committee had a change of minds. Someone suggested that it was not a bad idea for a marriage which would foster a closer relationship between the Spirit Pagoda and the new Shrek Academy. From the Federation's point of view, they did not encourage a close connection between these two powerful organizations. However, the current situation was unique. The Federation had just experienced a great catastrophe. Tang Wolin's identity as the sea god Tang San's son was confirmed, and he was also the hero who did his best to save the situation. At present, no one could possibly oppose him. Moreover, the Parliament would have little against him in view of the relationship between the newly appointed Seeker and the Dragon Emperor Douluo. So, it was not necessarily a bad thing for the two great organizations to be united through marriage. As for the specific details, no one knew. The high-ranking personnel of the Spirit Pagoda maintained their silence in the matter. No one dared to say nor ask anything. Everyone sat and waited for Yuna's decision. Perhaps, one should say the decision between her and Tang Wolin. The room turned quiet once again. Yuna stood in front of the window and gazed into the distance. She could see people bustling atop the gigantic, umbrella-like crown with her superb sight. They were Shrek Academy's people building their Eternal Sky City. Undoubtedly, the Eternal Sky City would become the core of the Douluo continent or even the entire Douluo star. The new Shrek City rose completely after the war. In fact, it even surpassed its previous reputation. There was a saying, you can only make a breakthrough by beginning anew and learning from past experiences. Chapter 19 1946 I missed you. Tang Wuolin and his comrades relied on their hard work and effort to revive Shrek Academy from its destruction. The Eternal Tree's rich life source furtively nourished the entire planet. With her divine origin spiritual cultivation base, Dou vaguely felt the entire planet glowing with vitality. The planet which was in decline initially was now flourishing toward a better future. Someone knocked on her door. The slovenly footsteps could be heard coming and came to a halt just outside her door soon after. Dou had a calm gaze. She looked as if she had known all this since earlier. She spoke in a deep voice. Come in. The door opened. A line of people walked into the room from the outside. The frontmost person was dressed in black attire with long hair parted in the center and a lock of golden hair. He was Ditian. All the others who followed behind came in different shapes and sizes. At any rate, all of them emitted an exceedingly strong aura. Ditian's eyes were glimmering with a determined glint. He made his way to the back of Dou slowly and got down on one knee. Your Highness. The rest of the people followed suit and got down on their knees. Dou did not turn around. Her eyes remained fixated on the scenery outside the window. Ditian clenched his teeth and said in a deep voice, Your Highness, we are here to bid you farewell. Bid farewell? Where are you going? Asked Dou indifferently as she turned around slowly and looked at Ditian. The beast god Ditian's eyes glimmered. Your Highness, although I don't understand why, you didn't make any move on Tang Wuolin over these years. Perhaps, you already have human sentiments. However, we don't feel the same way. Mankind destroyed our homes and slaughtered our clansmen such that we were almost on the brink of extinction. We can't make you change your mind, Your Highness. Tang Wuolin has already achieved unparalleled attainments by now. All we can do is to take him down by sacrificing our lives. Dou said indifferently. So you're going to head to Shrek Academy and challenge him? Ditian said in a deep voice. Yes, Your Highness. I really didn't expect you to actually have human sentiments. But, have you forgotten how our thousands of clansmen died in the past? Not only our dragon clan, but all the soul beasts too. We've been waiting patiently for so many years hoping that you'll lead us to be the masters of this world once again. In the end, you made such a decision. Although I don't wish to offend you, I really can't accept it. Your Highness, either you bestow death upon me or grant me the permission to put in one last effort for all the soul beasts. Even if I seek my own doom, I'll spare no effort in doing so. Goodbye, Your Highness, said Ditian suddenly with a stern voice. He then knelt on both knees to worship Dou. All the beasts behind him followed suit. Dou looked at them, but she did not speak. Ditian stood up abruptly after realizing that she did not respond. He turned around and walked to the outside determinedly. The rest of the beasts reacted similarly. They got up in succession and left. The beast god Ditian had urged Dou repeatedly on many occasions. In fact, he even took it upon himself to assassinate Tang Wuolin in the past. Nevertheless, he was stopped by Dou. They were still hopeful all this while when Dou told them that everything was going according to plan. Yet, time passed day after day. They witnessed Tang Wuolin making his breakthrough to the god rank. They finally felt hopeless when they saw Tang Wuolin and Dou fighting hand in hand together. They no longer had any hope as they watched Dou and Tang Wuolin becoming intimate with each other. What else could they do? Other than feeling despair, there was nothing else they could do. Stop. An icy cold voice was heard when the beast god Ditian was about to step out from the door. Ditian stopped walking. He turned around, looked toward Dou and said in a rather cold tone, Is there anything else, Your Highness? Dou remained at the same spot and said indifferently, From the moment I woke up in the core area of the Great Star Dou Forest, I was destined to be mankind's enemy. I admit that I'm in love with Tang Wuolin. I feel mankind's love. In fact, I'm inextricably in love with him. However, I've never forgotten that I'm a part of the dragon god. I'm Your Highness and I'm the leader of thousands of soul beasts. I love Tang Wuolin. However, we are not destined to be together. The blood of the dragon god flows in my veins, not a human's. Therefore, I bear the responsibilities of the dragon clan's mission. The moment I received the dragon god's core, I already sensed it. There was a gush of invisible pressure which existed in the unknown world. It controlled the entire world. I slowly grew stronger. In fact, I didn't even have the courage to make the real breakthrough because I felt the suppression from the invisible force. Actually, all of you felt it too. The abyssal plane arrived and the abyssal sage king who was more powerful than me was exterminated by Tang San, akin to crushing an ant. At the end, as a matter of fact, even the entire abyssal was devoured soon after. Now, can you please tell me had I been the person on the opposite side of Tang Wuolin? Do you think I would be able to kill him? The numerous beasts were stunned by her remarks. Dou continued to speak. The Lord of the Plain is his grandfather. The life core is his grandmother, and even his father was the god king once. Perhaps it's precisely because of these qualities of his that I'm attracted to him. However, we are not destined to be together just as I mentioned earlier. We are separated by a ditch that can't be crossed. There's the golden dragon king bloodline inside his body, but he's still a human after all. On the other hand, I'm a beast. The mode of heaven between a man and a beast can't be crossed on the Douluo continent. I've been waiting all this while for the ideal time. I'm waiting for the unseen pressure to disappear. The abyssal sage king helped us locate the path and endure all the traps laid down by the god king. It has allowed us to see the reality of this world. Now that the god king has disappeared without a trace, and the Lord of the Plain is in a deep sleep to recuperate, while the life core is similarly in a deep sleep to absorb nourishment, our time has come. It's also time for us to carry out the plan. The beast god was stunned, so was the bear lord, while the thousand demon king's mouth widened in surprise. The jade swan had a look of incredulity at the same time the darkness demon dragon's pupils constricted. The numerous beasts were all stunned speechless. The beast god was the first to recover from the surprise. He made his way to Dou with a long stride. Thump. He knelt on the ground and touched his forehead to the ground. Your Highness, we're wrong. We shouldn't have doubted you. The rest of the beasts knelt behind him in a rush to worship Dou. Dou's gaze remained as calm as before. There was a faint glint of bitterness diffusing from her eyes. She heaved a soft sigh. What is bound to come will come. Have you been wrong? Perhaps not. It's my responsibility and I'll still need to account for this responsibility anyhow. My plan is about to begin at last. Beep, beep, beep. A crisp sound was heard which broke the momentary silence. Dou lowered her head and looked toward the soul communicator on her wrist. Her charming face was no longer calm. In any case, she expressed a dash of gentleness. She waved her hand to dismiss the crowd. Ditian and the rest of the beasts stood up hastily and dispersed. Dou picked up the communicator. She turned around and looked toward the direction of the eternal heaven in the distance. What is it? Asked Dou softly. Nothing. I missed you. The voice from the other end of the communicator was obviously filled with joy. I thought we just met yesterday, said Dou who was slightly astonished. Dou, I love you. The voice from the other end was suddenly filled with earnesty. Dou's eyes became moist instantly. Her tone remained normal as before. Why do you have to say that every day? Chapter 1947 tomorrow is going to be a great day. I really want to say it. I can't stop myself from saying it. After experiencing so many things, we can finally be together now. Do you know that I've never felt happier? Now that the situation has stabilized, I'm prepared to resign from my positions as the Sea God's Pavilion Master and the Tang Sect Master when we get married. I will take you wherever you want to go. If you still wish to continue to be the Spirit Pagoda's Pagoda Master, I shall be by your side as the Pagoda Master's husband. What do you think? Haha, just by listening to the voice, one could tell how joyous and happy he was at this exact moment. Will your people agree to you resigning from all your duties? Dou asked, slightly astonished. Tang Wuolin smiled and said, There's no reason why they wouldn't agree. I've already done everything within my abilities. Moreover, no one is going to object to us getting married now. However, we are still representing the powerful organizations on the continent individually after all. It's not good to leave the Federation feeling like a major force is joining hands with another. Moreover, as Shrek and Spirit Pagoda repulse one another instinctively, we can't be the cause of these issues due to our identities. Thus, I made this decision after discussing with Elder Long so as not to cause trouble for Sister Molan. I'm going to take it upon myself to resign from my duties now. It's great for me too. I've already informed my companions. After that, we will organize a group wedding, and then we will travel. I will take you wherever you want to go. I will do whatever you want to do. I'm willing to do anything as long as you're with me. Dou's eyes were brimming with tears upon listening to this voice filled with excitement coming from the other end of the call. She was refraining herself with great effort so as not to bawl aloud. Why aren't you speaking? Are you touched? How about this? I shall come and see you now. I don't feel at ease when I don't see you for a day. Don't. You still have many other matters to attend to. We still have time to meet later on. Dou struggled to control her voice. All right then. I shall go and do some stuff. Also, I've never thought much about money in the past. I've only just discovered that I'm quite poor. I was just about to request for the Tang Sect to pay my salary as the Sect Master. Otherwise, I don't even have the money to marry you. Ha ha. Don't you think that's very foolish of me? You idiot. Gu Yuna sniggered and tears rolled down her face. Tang Wuling took a deep breath as he sensed the rich life source around him. At this exact moment, the world was filled with a myriad of colors and beauty could be seen in every part. The top of the eternal tree's gigantic crown was extremely flat. The massive, thick branches entangled one another naturally and formed a wooden foundation as if Yin had built it by hand. Shrek Academy would not be making many changes to the eternal tree, of course. They would only add some things to it. The idea to construct the eternal sky heaven had been proposed by Tang Wuling. The attack that destroyed Shrek Academy had always been the greatest agony in his heart. Shrek City was reconstructed, but the Sea God's Island could not be built because the Sea God Lake was filled with destruction aura. The eternal tree became the best medium for the construction of Sea God's Island. The crown of the eternal tree was where the life source was the richest, so much so that the air was almost sticky. On the other hand, such a massive amount of life force made it impossible for a person to ascend the eternal tree without adequate capabilities. A body would not be able to withstand being infused with so much life force at once. It was the same as when Tang San worried that the Golden Dragon King bloodline would explode in Tang Wuling due to the immortal energy's effect. Only powerhouses at Tidal Douluo rank and above could survive there. Thus, after Shrek Academy's inner court was built on the Eternal Sky City, it could only accept students that were Tidal Douluo ranked and above. Shrek Academy had yet to announce this to the public. Meanwhile, the people working and building the Eternal Sky City on the crown were naturally Shrek Academy's Tidal Douluo ranked powerhouses. Tang Wuling made an example of himself and became the leader of the operation. The Shrek 7 monsters were here as well. They were all capable of flight, so it would not be considered too troublesome for them to transport some materials from Shrek City. Big brother. In a flash, a silhouette arrived next to Tang Wuling. It was a very excited Shishi. Big brother, you're smiling so wide that the corners of your mouth are touching your ears. You must have just got off the call with Gu Yue, right? Tang Wuling spoke in an unpleasant tone. Do you have so much time to idle? If you're free, why don't you go ahead and do some work? Shishi sniggered. Big brother, when do you think I should propose to you, Anan? Huh? My concern now is not being able to get her father's blessing. He's always in a bad mood when he sees me. Tang Wuling said, do you even have to consult me even on this matter? You're so shameless. Even if you fail once, you can just give it a few more tries. Could it be that Yuanan will still leave you? Shishi said with a bitter expression. Yuanan said that she is only willing to marry me if I can defeat her. Yet, she is progressing so fast after absorbing life force recently that she will soon break through to limit Douluo. How can I defeat her? Tang Wuling burst out laughing. He patted Shishi's shoulder and said, brother, you're on your own now. Hey, big brother, that's not very righteous of you. You have everything you wished for now. Help a brother out and give me some ideas. Shishi had a look of beseechment on his face. I shall bestow you with 4 words. Persistence, patience, aggressiveness, relentlessness. Anyhow, I told Gu Yuna that we would have a group wedding together later on. Then, we should travel together. This is considered a proper justification, right? Look at Zenghu. His proposal a few days ago was a success. Lizzie looks so shy these days. I think it's about time for him too. You're the only troublesome one, Shishi said with a helpless expression. Big brother, I didn't ask for that either. All right then. Let me give it a try. Anyhow, Yuanan can't bear to beat me up anymore. Big brother, what do you think if I make my way into the bathroom when she is taking a shower and do what can't be undone? At this point, Shishi could not help swallowing a gulp of saliva. Tang Wuling smiled splendidly. He raised his hand and pointed at the back of Shishi. Shishi's body stiffened at once and did not even bother to turn around. He immediately said righteously, that is impossible, of course. I respect Yuanan so much. She is the goddess in my heart. If she asked me to head east, I won't have the courage to head west for sure. Ouch. Please be gentle. Please be gentle. Yuanan twisted Shishi's ear. Her charming face cracked into a cold smile. Are you trying to peep at me while I shower? I think that you need to clear your mind first. Please spare my life, wifey. Please spare me. Tang Wuling could not help chuckling upon seeing Shishi being tugged away by Yuanan Yui. This boy would not be able to leave Yuanan's grasp anymore in his life. Tang Wuling leapt into the sky and transformed into a golden ray of light before descending and landing in Shrek City. He returned to his office straight away. He dialed a soul communicator number. Is my attire prepared? It's done. I can send it over to you tonight. When do you plan to wear it? Tang Wuling smiled. Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow was going to be a great day. At this point, he turned around and looked toward the gigantic ice sculpture placed at one side of his office. There was a look of sorrow in his eyes. With his white robes and blue sword, Wu Zhangkong was standing quietly in the ice sculpture. He looked just like the day he had frozen in the ice. In that rigid ice that would not melt in eternity, Tang Wuling could even feel his persistence and relief before he died. Teacher Wu, please give us your blessing. I'm finally about to get what I wished for. I bet you have a joyful and happy life with Grandteacher in the other world too, right? The weather was good in the morning. The sky was a cloudless blue for miles, already a clear dark blue despite the early hour. The refreshing air mixed with the moisture diffused from the Sea God's Lake. It filled the lands with vigor and vitality. Tang Wuling stood on the academy's field and looked at the main academic building before him. Chapter 1948 Angel's Ring. He built the main academic building on his own. It was the symbol of Shrek Academy's reconstruction. He arrived very early on this day, almost the same time as old Chen the sweeper. In fact, Yuzichan was not even out jogging at this time. Actually, you don't need to care too much, Chen Zinji said to Tang Wuling as he held the broom. Tang Wuling shook his head. We will still need to follow rules since we're living in this world. Moreover, Shrek needs to maintain its usual neutrality as his tradition. We can't change that just because of me alone. Moreover, you have to allow me to retire after making my mark. Look at yourself. Didn't you go from the war god hole to our Shrek Academy and become our old Chen the sweeper? Chen Zinji spoke in a grim tone. A gentleman does not censure people behind their backs. Their eyes met and they could not help bursting into laughter. Tang Wuling said, I give myself 10 years time. I need to relax properly and I need to build a real home that belongs to me. Shrek and the Tang sect will still be my homes and I can still return whenever I choose. Chen Zinji's gaze focused ever so slightly for a moment. What happens 10 years later? Are you preparing to? Tang Wuling nodded in determination. 10 years later, I'm going to begin to try it out. I don't know how much time I will need either, but I will be working hard in that direction. If I succeed, I'll certainly guide you in. Chen Zinji chuckled. That's not important anymore. Everything that I have now, I didn't earn it. Every day that I spend living and being with Yeyu is a gift to me from above. I dare not ask for more. Truthfully, Tang Wuling did not yearn to become a god. This was because he was already living the life that he dreamed of. He had already figured out how to resign from all of his duties. The Tang sect and Shrek were thriving, and Molan was promoted to speaker. The Holy Spirit cult was exterminated, and the issue with the Abyss had been completely solved as well. It could be said that the entire Douluo continent was prosperously growing. His duties had been thoroughly taken care of. Personally, he did not have too many reasons to become a god. It was just that the divine realm would need to be constructed. Otherwise, he would not be able to look for his parents. He needed to be more powerful because he understood that this was the only way he would be able to sense his parents' existence. Although his divine consciousness was no longer weak, he had already attempted to sense his parents' existence through the sea gods trident on multiple occasions and got no response. The only clue left behind by his father was that the Douluo divine realm was turned into a black hole. The Douluo continent's knowledge of the cosmos was still far from adequate. In fact, Tang Wuling did not even have the slightest idea as to what a black hole was. Waiting was an option for him, of course, but he hoped that he could take some initiatives through his hard work. In any case, the act of establishing a divine realm was definitely not an easy feat, let alone lacking in experience. Tang Wuling did not have the slightest idea on what he had to do. He planned to wait until he married Gu Yuna and enjoyed a period of wedded bliss before he would discuss with her how to attempt it. After all, the Douluo continent plane was in an evolutionary process. They would need to consider this and gradually decide whether they would elevate the Douluo star to god rank by relying on the abyssal plane's energy or establish a small divine realm of its own. He and Gu Yuna were considered the only people on the path toward the real god rank mentioned by the Demon Empress earlier. Speaking of the Demon Empress, Tang Wuling had no choice but to acknowledge that one of the people that had been resurrected would qualify. All the evil soul masters from Holy Spirit cult were deceased. However, a person that was related to them was resurrected. It was precisely Lan Fotzi. Lan Fotzi casted a sad glance at Tang Wuling after she was resurrected, then she fled into the distance, leaving behind a desolated departing silhouette. This made Tang Wuling realize that though she was the daughter of the Demon Empress, she had never committed any evil deeds. Elder Chen, I'm leaving, Tang Wuling said to Chen Zinji next to him with a grin. Chen Zinji smiled and said, leaving now? You really don't need us to cheer for you from over here? Tang Wuling said smilingly, no need. No need. This is the matter between me and her. We will invite everyone for the wedding. All right. All the best to you. Don't get rejected by her. Haha, Chen Zinji said jokingly. Tang Wuling chuckled and said, how can that be? How can I possibly do this without having the confidence? As he spoke, he patted his chest confidently before leaping into the air. Far away, the sun was slowly rising in the sky, shining its brilliance over the land. It felt as if Tang Wulien's entire body was tainted with a layer of gold when he flew into the sky. Tang Wulien sensed the air surrounding him. He had never noticed how freeing and jubilant he felt when he was flying. Gu Yue, here I come, Tang Wulien muttered to himself. Flares dashed out from behind him. With a dazzling radiance, he flew straight toward the spirit pagoda like a golden meteor. He did not try to conceal himself. Hence, his presence could be clearly seen whether it was from the ground or through the myriad of reconnaissance soul devices and even the soul satellites in the sky. On the top floor of Shrek Academy, Yue Sangyu and Xu Xiaoan sat side by side on the roof's edge. Xu Xiaoan said, Sangyu, why do you think the captain won't allow us to join him? Huh? I thought a proposal must be especially grand with friends and family around to give a blessing. Yue Sangyu chuckled and said, Big brother must have his own ideas. He told us that we'll be organizing the wedding together, right? It's going to be a bustling crowd by then. A proposal should be between two people, so he's doing it alone. What do you mean by organizing together? Have you proposed to me already? Xu Xiaoan asked with an unpleasant tone. Yue Sangyu turned over his palm. A ring appeared on his palm as if he was performing a magic trick. Xiaoan, it's just the two of us here now. Marry me, will you? Xu Xiaoan was exasperated. So this is how you propose to me? So careless. Humph, Yue Sangyu said smilingly. Look at this. We are watching the rising sun, and we are basking in the aura that is filled with vitality and brilliance under its illumination. We are on the rooftop of Shrek Academy. Everything here at this very moment is one of a kind. My love for you is also one of a kind. Formality is a construct. What else can compare to my sincere love for you? Am I right? Xu Xiaoan was stunned for a moment. She looked at his sincere gaze. Even though she still felt that it was strange, she nodded instinctively. They had been together for such a long time already, and they had experienced so many things as a couple. After Shrek was destroyed, they shared the agonizing experience and process before they rebuilt it to what it was today under the leadership of Tang Wulien. They had also finally grown up to be the pillars of the generation at Shrek Academy. They had both become hyper Douluos after receiving the ancient life tree's life force. Moreover, they would certainly be able to achieve limit Douluo rank in the future. There was no doubt that this generation of the Shrek 7 monsters was the most glorious generation besides the first generation which had achieved godhood. Xu Xiaoan's charming face flushed and she pouted her red lips. All right then. As she was speaking, she raised her little hand. Yue Sangyu's smile appeared as splendid as a light angel under the illumination of sunlight. He slipped the ring in his hand onto Xu Xiaoan's finger, and their bodies trembled ever so slightly. They had experienced so many hardships, and they could finally be together. From the moment the ring was put on, they were one. Chapter 1949. Will you marry me? Xu Xiaoan noticed that there was a pair of angel's wings on the ring and a golden jewel encrusted at the center. The jewel was carved into the shape of a fresh flower in full bloom. It was sparkling under the protection of the wings. What a beautiful ring! Xu Xiaoan could not help saying. Yue Sangyu stretched out his palm to her. Where's my ring? Xu Xiaoan was stunned for a moment. Yours. I thought you would have prepared all the rings by yourself. Give it to me. I'm going to put it on for you. Yue Sangyu said in astonishment. Huh? Am I supposed to prepare it for myself? No one told me that. These people are unreliable. Xu Xiaoan sniggered. Foolish boy. As she spoke, a flash of light came from her hand. A silver white ring appeared in her palm. The ring had a simple design, but it was carved with a pattern of frost flowers. It was to commemorate the predecessor of Xu Xiaoan's star staff, the Star Wheel Eye staff. Small diamonds adorned the spaces between the flowers like speckles of starlight. Yue Sangyu cracked a smile at once. From this day on, we are husband and wife. Xu Xiaoan put on the ring for him. She huffed and said, then you better behave yourself and stay obedient. Don't think that I don't know many girls in the academy are constantly winking at you. If I were to find out that you did anything that wronged me, humph. Yue Sangyu burst out laughing. That's impossible. Xu Xiaoan said with a smile. That's better. Yue Sangyu laughed even more. I was saying that it's impossible that you find out. Could it be that a thief will leave his mark behind? You. Xu Xiaoan made a punching hand gesture at him, but Yue Sangyu grabbed her wrist. All of a sudden, a pair of angel's wings spread out from Yue Sangyu's back. She shouted in alarm as he carried her and flew into the sky. Hey, what are you doing? Meanwhile, under the enormous dome in Shrek Academy's gymnasium, 1,000 strings of radiant swords flickered in a crisscross pattern. The pulsating glow looked like dazzling starlight in the night sky. The swords contracted while the sword spirit condensed into form. A faint silhouette appeared in the crisscrossing sword's aura. A chubby figure stood there on the edge. There was a slightly anxious look on his face. He wanted to call out to her a few times, but he could not bring himself to do it. This was because he knew very well how she loathed being disturbed during her sword training. Nevertheless, this was truly an important day. At last, the sword's radiance contracted. Yi Xingling made her way to Xu Lizzie's side calmly. She said, "What's going on with you? You seemed perturbed by something. My sword aura can sense that there is something wrong with your emotions today. What's going on?" As he looked at the concerned look in Yi Xingling's eyes, Xu Lizzie immediately felt warmth spreading from his chest. He mustered the courage to say, "Sister Xingling, no, Xinglan, I." Although he was trying as hard as he could, he was incapable of uttering the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Yi Xingling asked in confusion, "What's going on with you?" Xu Lizzie got down on one knee and leaned his upper body forward. His usually steady hands held a ring box up to Yi Xingling. He opened the box and revealed the ring inside it. The ring was made up of jewels that were linked up together through a mysterious encrusting method. When seen from the surface, it looked as though no metal was used to make the ring. It was as though it consisted only of the dazzling jewels. "Will you marry me?" The four simple words instantly made Xu Lizzie sweat profusely. He had never cultivated the body sex innate secret technique. Yet at that moment, the sound of his heartbeat could be heard pumping violently throughout the entire gymnasium. Yi Xingling was obviously stunned. It was quite apparent that this was very unexpected for her. Whatever the case, the radiance as sharp as a sword in her eyes immediately vanished when she saw the sweat covering Xu Lizzie's face. She raised her hand and wiped it away with her sleeve. Then, she extended her hand to him. Xu Lizzie was no fool, but he was at a loss as to what to do. Tears streamed down his face and his lips trembled. He held Yi Xingling's hand gently as his own trembled. He struggled to slide the ring onto her finger 3 times before he managed the feat. How many years had it been? When he was young and met Yi Xingling for the very first time, he fell in love with the arrogant, cold, unyielding young maiden. At the time, he could only follow her and remain at her side like a puppy. She had always kept people at arm's length and devoted her full attention to her sword training. She was always so competitive and was constantly working toward the perfection of her martial soul. He was always there, watching over her like a silent protector, even after she agreed to be with him during the Sea God's fated date festival that took place on the Sea God's Lake later. Xu Lizzie still felt incredulous in the depths of his heart for a very long time. He had never engaged in any intimacy with her until now. There was always a sense of inferiority within him. He felt an ineffable feeling in his heart all along as if his presence tarnished the purity of the fair maiden before him. On the other hand, Xu Lizzie felt that everything was real for the very first time when she accepted his ring without the slightest hesitation. She was genuinely going to be his wife. The emotions in his heart had reached their pinnacle. In fact, he found himself almost uttering thank you. He wanted to thank heaven for blessing him and also to express his gratitude for his beloved woman's tolerance and approval. Yi Xingling's eyes reddened as well. It had already been so many years. She watched him gradually go from being a small chubby boy to a chubby man. However, he had never changed the way he looked at her. His gaze was always enticed and crystal clear. He remained by her side, quietly guarding her all this time. When there was danger, he shielded her with his body like a wall. His sincere affection had melted her heart bit by bit. In the beginning, she felt pity for him and even sympathized with him. Gradually, she was touched by his actions and her guard melted away little by little. Then, he mustered the courage to confess his love for her during the fated date festival and finally opened the door to her heart. In time, they had become the outstanding soul masters of the current Shrek 7 monsters. He was already a dauntless man with an indomitable spirit. She was well aware of how she accepted the ring willingly. It was because their relationship was no longer one-sided. "You fool, I haven't prepared your ring. What should I do now? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" She pulled him over to her side and held his hand. It's fine. It's all right. "It's fine as long as you put on the ring I've prepared for you," said Xu Lizzie shyly. At this exact moment, the emotion in his eyes was overflowing to the outside. Yi Xingling said, "How is that fine? Please hold on." As she spoke, she loosened her grip on Shulizzi's hands and took a step back. There was a flash of light from her hand and a rapier appeared in her palm. The rapier appeared to be forged from alloy and was slightly over 1 meter in length. The characteristic pattern of alloy could be seen on its surface. Yi Xinglin's eyes glimmered while she shook her wrist. At once, her sword's consciousness filled the space. A pure sword aura burst forth from her body and coiled around the rapier in her hand. A strange scene emerged. The rapier began glowing brighter and brighter with the infusion of her sword's consciousness. It turned incandescent in a split second and was shaking ever so slightly. Soon, the rapier began shrinking in her hand. She used pure soul power to forcefully refine the impurities in the rapier and conserve only the essence of the alloy. The sword turned smaller and smaller, and Yi Xinglin turned over her wrists. At once, the 100 refined alloy essence wrapped around her fingers and was bent into a tiny ring. The incandescent radiance on its surface had also faded away gradually. The ring had a deep hue with layers of faint overlapping patterns on the surface. This refinement process could only be done by someone at least at hyper Douluo rank. Moreover, it contained Yi Xinglin's sword god's consciousness. Chapter 1950. I love it. I love it. This rapier was gifted to me by my father when I was a child. It was the rapier I used for my sword cultivation in the beginning. I haven't used it in many years, yet it is still exceedingly precious to me. It was my first gift from my father and also my first sword. I made it into this ring now. I'm sorry, Lizzie. It's a little rushed, but Lizzie took a step forward instantly and extended his chubby wrist to her. I love it. I love it. Yi Xinglin could not help laughing upon seeing his eagerness. She seldom smiled, yet this smile was akin to a flower blooming in the spring. It showered glory upon the entire gymnasium. Lizzie could not refrain himself from laughing out loud upon pulling on the sword ring. He spread out his arms and wrapped them around Yi Xinglin abruptly in a rather wild manner for the very first time. His embrace was warm and secure. Yi Xinglin smiled as well, hugging his waist tightly. Meanwhile, Lizzie unleashed the soul power from his body and took her along as he shot into the sky. They flew out from the gymnasium and headed straight for the sky. On the lakeside of Sea God Lake, Shishi's eyes revealed his restlessness as he watched the crystal clear lake water. Meanwhile, a familiar aura appeared behind him. Shishi hastily turned around and looked at the person that spoke. Yuan and Yui said in confusion, "It's still very early in the morning. Why did you ask me to come out?" Shishi clenched his teeth and said, "Yuan, I would like to challenge you." Yuan and Yui was stunned for a moment. She took 2 steps forward and stood before him. She raised her hand and felt his forehead. "Do you have a fever? Or are you feeling overstuffed after eating?" The corner of Shishi's lips twitched. "Why would I be overstuffed after eating?" Yuan and Yui smiled and said, "If not, why would you come looking to get beaten up?" Shishi could not help feeling exasperated. "How are you so certain that I won't be able to defeat you?" Yuan and Yui shrugged. "Don't you know it in your heart already?" Shishi said furiously. "I refuse to be misled by fallacies. Come and beat me up if you can." Yuan and Yui said smilingly, "Sure." As she spoke, she charged toward Shishi in a flash. They were truly too familiar with one another. She was well aware of Shishi's specialty. Shishi was very fast, so she would never allow him to take advantage of his speed. Ever since she sought revenge for her mother, rekindled her relationship with her father, and returned to her clan, Yuan and Yui's temperament had actually changed a lot. She was much more pleasant compared to before. However, Yuan and Tiandang doted on his daughter more after being reunited with her. Naturally, he did not have a good impression of his future son-in-law Shishi. He played a few tricks to punish Shishi on multiple occasions, and Shishi endured them in silence. These punishments were carried out behind Yuan and Yui's back, and Shishi was too embarrassed to complain to her. Shishi's silhouette flashed when he was confronted by Yuan and charging at him. His entire body turned illusionary. Given that Yuan and Yui was familiar with his strategies, would he not also be familiar with her techniques? Yuan and Yui slap missed. She shouted, "Let's head to the sky." There was no need for her reminder. Shishi's silhouette flickered and he flew toward the sky in order to prevent damaging the area surrounding the Sea God Lake. Yuan and Yui followed closely behind. One of them pursued while the other fled, and they arrived high above in a split second. Shishi twisted his body and conjured the light dragon dagger in his hand. His figure flickered continuously as he swiftly split into 6 duplicates. Those copies craftily attacked Yuan and Yui from 6 directions. The light dragon dagger exuded an aura of sharpness and lightness while emitting a faint dragon's roar. Radiance pulsated randomly on the dagger, making it bright or dark at various times. It was unpredictable. The most outstanding aspect of Shishi's martial soul that had evolved into the space-time dragon was its unpredictability. Yuan and Yui realized that Shishi was serious about the match when he unleashed his most effective ability at the start. Immediately, she decided not to hold back as well. Still in the sky, she took a step forward with her left foot, and at once, the air around her exploded with a loud boom. It felt just like the air had boiled over as large areas of distorted light spread outward. Judging by the richness of their soul power, Yuan and Yui, with her twin martial souls, was only preceded by Tang Wuling and the Shrek 7 monsters. The tremor her foot had made caused the entire sky to sway. Shishi's 6 clones slowed down as though they had sunk into mud. Moreover, they were being displaced. Yuan and Yui swung her fist. At once, the warped air began surging toward her direction, cutting off the surrounding area. The punch was not aimed at any of Shishi's 6 silhouettes but the thin air. Even so, it caused 6 duplicates to stumble and fall. It was the Titan Divine Punch. Yuan and Yui's Titan Divine Punch was fused with her Cloud Vortex Divine Punch. Its strength could definitely be described as terrifying. This was also the reason she had absolute confidence when she was sparring against Shishi. Regardless of Shishi's speed, it was utterly meaningless when he was confronted by absolute power, especially her ability that could practically shackle an area of the sky and land. The strength of one powerful person could defeat 10 martial arts cultivators. She would not unleash her fallen angel martial soul when she was fighting against Shishi because Titan Giant Ape was the best option to subdue Shishi. Nevertheless, Shishi's 6 silhouettes suddenly faded simultaneously. They had vanished because of the Cloud Vortex Divine Punch, but Shishi's real body was not revealed. In a split second, Yuan and Yui could only feel as if everything around her had become a vacuum. She was surprised by how uneasy she felt. The unexpected change startled her. It would be unprecedented for her opponent to force his way out of her Titan Divine Punch during a battle. Generally, the opponent could only confront strength with strength. Even if the opponent could teleport, it was utterly impossible to unleash it when she had locked him down. There was no doubt that Shishi was also improving. The instantaneous change was the product of ingenious interchanging of time and space. Shishi's body was actually in the air diagonally across from behind Yuan and Yui. His gaze was icy cold and his entire person was in an extremely calm state. Light flickered on his body as he transformed into an illusionary shadow instantly and descended from the sky. His body flickered consecutively 7 times as he went down. With each flicker, he was moving in and out of space. Yuan and Yui could rely on her formidable spiritual power to detect Shishi's attack coming from her back. But as a result of his flickering, she felt as if 7 people had suddenly appeared behind her. Moreover, they were all attacking her from different angles. She was not as quick as Shishi after all. It was definitely rather dangerous for her to brace an attack like this with her back. In fact, she did not even have the time to turn around. Nevertheless, Yuan and Yui made a display of her incredible abilities. Instead of turning around, she let out a howl from her mouth, and her body swelled up instantly. Like an eruption, she grew several meters taller in a split second, and her entire body emitted an awesome aura. Her body suddenly slammed backward. As she slammed her body back, a powerful vortex began spinning at high speed at the center of her back. Shishi's flickering body was immediately affected. Not only that, his angle of attack changed as a result of Yuan and Yui's body growing so suddenly. However, Shishi's eyes lit up, one black and the other white. The 8th soul ring on his body was faintly glowing. He took a step forward into the air. The residual shadows left behind when his body flickered 7 times had condensed simultaneously. They continued their attack, but his original body had disappeared without a trace. It was a time-space shuttle. Despite the piercing pain, Yuan and Yui still slammed her back into the attack coming from behind. The 7 silhouettes were blasted away forcefully, just as she was preparing to turn around and finish off Shishi. A feeling of extreme danger from an unseen world suddenly arose in her heart. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.